JJ, the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Now listen, we got some great information today from the SBA on the 14th of April, getting ready to be the 15th, about partnerships. So these K1s are kind of tricky, and here's why. A partnership, a lot of times when that box 1 is filled, you don't know is it subject to self-employment tax or not, because if the partner's not actively involved, the partner's a limited partner, not a general partner, then that box 1 is not subject to self-employment tax. But if it is subject to self-employment tax, you look down on box 14 on that K1 from a partnership, and you will see that it is subject to self-employment earnings if that's the case. And the big question has been, do you account for that for PPP purposes down at the individual level or up at the partnership level? Well, it got resolved today by the SBA, and here it is. It gets accounted for up at the partnership level. Makes a lot of sense, and in the guidelines that the SBA put out there, really clears up a lot of decision making. Do you do it at the individual? Do you do it at partnership? How's it supposed to be done? So if it's subject to self-employment, box 14, then it's the partnership that will file that PPP. If there's wages in the partnership, then that amount up to $100,000 per partner would be included and added on to the payroll cost to then be divided by 12 times 2.5. Now, one of the things to note is that also on a K1 from a partnership, you'll know that because at the top left, it'll say Form 1065, but box 4 is guaranteed payments. Guaranteed payments are deducted to arrive at the net income for that partnership, which stated another way, guaranteed payments in box 4 of a K1 from a partnership are deducted before the amount on box 1. So you can have a circumstance where someone has a K1 and box 1, okay, is not subject to self-employment tax, so you don't see an amount down in box 14. But a lot of times for those that are preparing partnership returns, the reason that they've done that is that then box 4, the guaranteed payments, which is subject to self-employment tax, that is what then is taken into account for the PPP. So what am I saying here? When you get a partnership K1, you've got to look not really at box 1, you got to look at box 14 and box 4, because there are some that box 1 is subject to self-employment tax down in box 14, and box 4 is completed for guaranteed payments. So let's do this. You're like, what are you talking about all these boxes, JJ? Like, what? You're overwhelming me. Here's what you do. You get a K1 from a partnership. Top left says Form 1065, okay? If there's a box 14, it's subject to self-employment tax. If there's a box 4, guaranteed payments, both those numbers, okay, it will be included in the PPP calculation at the partnership level. So the partnership will file the PPP application at the top, check partnership. It doesn't matter if it's an LLC, taxed as a partnership. What matters here is it a partnership? Now, I will tell you this, there are a lot of K1s out there. It has a box 1, but nothing in 4 and nothing in 14. So if it's only in box 1, this doesn't count. What is clear is that it has to be self-employed earnings on that K1, box 14, box 4. And here's why. Self-employment earnings is subject to self-employment tax. What is self-employment tax? Self-employment tax is Social Security and Medicare taxes. That self-employment tax rate, which is actually paid at the individual level, is 15.3%. Sounds like a familiar percentage, at least for me, because wages that are paid to employees, and by the way, the partners cannot be paid employees. Why? Who knows, but they can't. But employees that are paid, no matter where they're paid, right? What comes out of their check is Social Security and Medicare, FICA, right? That's 7.65% withheld. The employer has to match that 7.65%, which together on wages between the employee withholdings, the employer match, together, boom, 15.3%. That's why self-employment earnings is on the same playing field as wages. Therefore, just because you're getting a K1 from a partnership doesn't mean that that will be included up at the partnership level. And now we know it's definitely not included down at the individual level as self-employment as a PPP application for the individual. It would be up at the partnership level, but let me clear this up. Box 1 on a partnership means nothing for PPP purposes. You are looking at box 4 and box 14, okay? That's the 1 and that's the 4. You're looking at those two boxes. You got numbers in those two boxes, then that is included in the payroll costs of the partnership, and the PPP is filed at the partnership level. If there is no wages in the partnership, then the PPP would simply be based on the self-employment earnings, box 14, and or guaranteed payments in box 4. Those are key items. And the rationale with the SBA is one of beauty, because when you're looking into the guidelines that came out today, it indicates the reason for that is that the expenses that lead to forgiveness are going to be up at the partnership level, not at the individual level. Also, this makes it easier for everybody because you don't have then two applications, or with partners. I mean, if you had 4 partners in a partnership and wages in the partnership, all of a sudden you could be looking at 5 PPP applications. This way, it's just one. All the partners, their self-employment income, box 4, box 14, accounted for and included in the PPP application at the partnership level. I'm loving that because that's going to reduce a lot of paperwork. Now, let me just tell you something real quick, just side note, JJ the CPA, a little tip add on right here. I don't have one client that has that. You know why? Because if you're actively involved in a partnership, the way that you want to go, okay, now this has been the way for a while, but the way you want to go is you want that entity to be an S corporation. Check out my video on that. Why be an S corp and not a partnership when you're actively involved in the business? So I don't have any of that going on. Think about that. JJ the CPA doesn't have one client that gets a K1 that is subject to self-employment tax or guaranteed payments. I don't have one K1 from a partnership where there's a box 14 and a box 4 on the returns that I prepare. But for those that do, you include it up at the partnership level. I'm loving it. I like it. It's easy. You know what I'd love for you to do? Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please do. I'd love it. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. All right. Hey, y'all be safe out there. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. JJ the CPA out.